Captain Franchopino there, we are a nation that is alive with possibility, and possibility which was revealed to us through the great work of a man who will always hold dear in our hearts, Tata Nelson Mandela. But a very special guest joins us this morning, a lady who was also on stage last night, Premier of the Western Cape, Alderman Helen Zille. It's great to have you here with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Katlego. It's great to be here.
And thank you for taking the time to make it in so early, because I know that last night must have been quite a late one.
This is my second shift.
But let's talk about last night. How was it being on that stage? And as I was saying earlier on, seeing that Madiba magic, seeing people united, which is essentially what I think what Tata was fighting for all along, for a free and democratic society where everyone lives in harmony.
My overwhelming feeling was one of privilege, to be able to be in a city that really knew how to celebrate his life and bring it all together. And it was also one of great, great celebration. I think we've had a week of mourning, which was entirely appropriate, but we need to celebrate the legacy.
Yes.
And having that just after I'd been in Pretoria, where Madiba is lying in state, and being part of that very solemn procession, and then seeing him in the casket with that unmistakable face, exactly like that.
Wow.
His skin still alive and fresh and shining, and his Madiba shirt. If I remember correctly, it was a navy blue, not black, with cream, and looking so peaceful. It was an amazing experience, perhaps one of the most moving of my life, definitely. Looking in and just seeing him at peace, and I thought, that's what we need to be, a nation at peace, giving everybody a fair chance to be the best they can be.
Over the past couple of days, we've had leaders of nations coming to South Africa. We've had South Africans and indeed the world celebrating Madiba's life. How's that made you feel as a leader, as a South African, and as an individual?
It's quite extraordinary to see what an impact one person can have on the whole world. And I've spent a lot of time trying to think exactly what it was. And I think what it was his capacity to show that forgiveness is necessary if we're going to become what we need to become as a nation. Now, compare that to the huge controversy going on in the United States about the simple fact that Obama shook hands with Castro. And you think, how is a nation like that ever going to build up its future when there's a huge controversy about whether you have a handshake with your ideological opponent?
Wow.
And in the context of an international community still obsessed with stuff like that, and I feel really sorry for Obama that he has to go back and explain why he shook somebody's hand at Nelson Mandela's funeral. But nevertheless, you can see what a huge gesture it was, and why the world paused and stopped to say, a man who's had 27 years of life in prison, who can come out, who has sacrificed really everything, a family and everything, and come out and say, we can now accomplish what I went to prison for, which was building one nation with one future, looking at us as a nation that can overcome the past and build a real future for everyone. And if I live with recrimination and hatred, I only poison myself. I don't do anybody else any harm. And his great phrase, if I hold animosity towards other people, I'm drinking poison myself, believing that it'll kill other people.
Wow.
And he just lived out that spirit. Now, it was that made him a world icon. A world icon. And to have him in South Africa, and to have us being able to call ourselves South African, and to be a compatriot with the greatest man of our age, is an enormous privilege.
Indeed.
And one that we should not squander.
I want you, just for a moment, to speak to the young people of South Africa. I mean, it is for us, you know, and the born frees and the generations to come that the struggle was mounted and taken upon. What would you say to them, and what is it that they should take from the legacy of Nelson Mandela going forward and in building this ideal rainbow nation that we all seek?
Well, I often think with the youth of today, they quite rightly take their freedoms for granted. All young people should be able to take their freedoms for granted. They should be able to feel they have the right to express their opinions, they have the right to assemble, associate with whom they wish, they have a right to be obnoxious if they want to be. All of those are fundamental rights. But what I don't think we appreciate enough is how to use freedom to build the lives that we would like for ourselves, to live a life we value.
Mm-hmm.
And freedom really means nothing unless we use it well. And why should one use it? Well, to become the best you can be. And that means that the state has a role. We have to provide decent education, health systems, security, all of those things that enable people to be free.
Mm-hmm.
But then people have to use their freedoms.
Yeah.
No one gets an education without really hard work.
Yeah.
A library can be a massive opportunity for somebody that enables them to fulfill their freedoms. And on the other hand, other people will always walk past the library and say, well, what's the government doing for me? And so this sense that you have to use your freedom to build your life.
Yeah.
Is a concept that I think is often missing in the debate.
Mm-hmm.
So people think having a jaw, going out to clubs, drinking a lot, having a party, sleeping late the next morning is freedom. Well, that is part of freedom, but a very small part.
Yeah.
The really big part is saying, how do I now add value for the next generation?
Yeah.
How do I now become the best I can be so that I can also give back? Okay. And that's what Madiba did.
Wow, wow. What will you miss most about him?
I think another of his quite extraordinary qualities was when he interacted with people, how he made them feel. So one of my, yeah, exactly,
Look
exactly.
at that photo
Look
right
at that
there.
photo right there. Now, you know, one of the first times I ever interacted with Madiba was when my son was in primary school and he was just learning to play the violin, and he was very earnest about his violin. And like little kids, they play like you're sawing wood, you know, it's hardly the greatest sound, but he was most earnest. And he was picked to play in a little concert for Madiba before he was going to give a public address at the Baxter Theatre in Cape Town. My little boy was so excited when Madiba came, my boy played as much. And he was with other children playing music.
Yeah.
And Madiba treated those children as if he'd never heard a concert before. He was so enthralled by them. And they felt as if they'd just played a Mozart symphony. You know, that's how much they felt appreciated.
Wow.
And you know, it can change a child's confidence in their capacity to play music and to appear in front of an audience. There's a huge audience in the Baxter Theatre, but they were playing for one man, Madiba, and he responded to them as if he'd never heard such magnificent music before.
My goodness, wow, wow, magnanimous man indeed, and what amazing work he has done for, you know, not just only you and I, but I think for the future of our country and the world. But thank you so much for taking your time to
it was great.
be with us this morning.
Big, big week for us in South Africa, and we must never, ever allow a day of reconciliation to approach without thinking of a sacrifice that a great, great man did to ensure reconciliation was possible in this country.
Amazing words. Thank you very much. Premier of the Western Cape Alderman, Helen Zille. Thank you very much for having the time to take to chat to us this morning. Really, such a great